Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Back again, guys, after a short break and time with family and friends in the wonderful, beautiful, way too hot heat wave that we're having over here in the UK. Hope you all are well and enjoying yourselves. Big thank you to all of the recent subscribers whilst I've been away, still climbing in the subscriber count. We are officially at 1,700 subscribers in the DMT Forest of Fear family. So a big welcome to all of you new subscribers and thank you for your support. Tonight's show, guys and girls, is a really chilling collection of stories. As ever, please do let me know down below in the comments what you thought. Please do like and share, and don't forget to hashtag Team Fear. And without further ado, let's get into tonight's first story, entitled We Call Them the Snatchers. Let's get straight into that. It started out as a normal weekend. My dad decided to haul us out camping, claiming that the wilderness will do us good. That was the last advice he gave me before he was taken. We don't know the real name for them, but we call them the Snatchers. I'll start at the beginning of our trip. It was gorgeous sunshine, mountainous regions, lush and blindingly green foliage all around. We set up camp a little distance away from the campsite, preferring the peaceful stir of wildlife to the shouts of wives telling their husbands to hurry up and cook the bacon. Screaming kids ran around shouting bear in the forest and pretending to be chased. My dad and brother got to setting the tents up while my mum and I started getting the food out in preparation for lunch. We needed a good meal before the day's hike. With everything packed and prepared with a full belly, we made our way to the popular trail. I was excited to be able to lose myself in nature. Even though I complained about going on these trips, I always ended up enjoying them. After walking for a few hours, my dad and brother decided to take a detour off the trail to visit a water source which they thought was a waterfall they had found on the map. We had a couple of hours left until nightfall, so, trusting their expertise in map reading, me and my mum followed them without a single moment of hesitation. We were a very active family and my brother and I were very familiar with the wilderness. After walking for a few minutes, we began to notice things getting quieter until noise stopped completely. It was like a bubble had surrounded us, preventing any sounds from penetrating this invisible wall. Immediately we became very wary of our position. When sounds stop, it's a good indicator that a predator is in the area or has been recently. We had encountered bears and the like before, and knew how to react in those situations, so we continued on, just much more cautiously this time. I was the first to notice the rot, the death and decay that seemed to get worse and worse the further that we walked. It started off as a few dead leaves, but eventually it seeped into the roots of the trees, causing them to turn black and start to crumble apart. Colour and life had been stolen from this place, almost as if someone had taken a giant eraser, removing any signs that once life had existed there. The air became heavy, like a metal blanket draped around our shoulders. We all seemed to sag in our posture, struggling to walk. A chilly breeze began to whisper around our toes, slowly rising and engulfing our entire body in a bitterly cold mist. It was the sound of them that caught our attention first. It started with a strange house, quietly lifting in the air. My mum freaked out, begging to go back, and Dad agreed. We began retracing our steps, and an hour of walking and still there was no relief from the decay, the heavy air, or the chill. We began to panic as we saw the sun slowly setting below the tree line, taking away any hope we had of finding our way back to camp. The darker it became, the louder the noises started to echo around us. Dad was trying to reach a park ranger, but the only sound coming from the walkie-talkie was static. Abruptly the noise stopped. Quietness resonated around us, spiking fear through my body, sending a line of hairs rising up my spine. A blood-curdling shriek pierced the quiet pulling at my natural instinct to run, flooding my veins with adrenaline. A set of yellow eyes caught my flashlight beam as something peered from behind a tree 50 feet away. We all took a deep breath, realizing we were being pursued. My dad was the first to break the fear that had frozen us all. Like a pickaxe of courage, he smashed away our inability to flee and dragged us along the uneven path we had created. He pushed us in front, taking up defensive stance at the back in case he needed to fight. My stomach dropped as I heard another different footfall to ours, almost as if something was scampering through the thick, dead brush scattering the floor. More followed, breaking out from the sides to chase us, gathering speed and crashing through the rotten foliage. I heard a thud, a shriek, and a gleeful yelp, followed by the sound of something being dragged through the leaves. We could see a light ahead, a flood of green colours exploding in our vision. We didn't slow. We continued to sprint until we burst through the trees onto the trail, gasping for air, muscles cramping and hearts hammering. My mum noticed that Dad was not there. I mentioned the thud and shriek, and she wiped a tear, grabbed me and my brother by the arms and marched us towards our camp. We located a park ranger, but because of the thunderstorm that just broke, he can't issue a search and rescue until it stops. Me and my family are so anxious to find my dad, so worried that whatever snatched him might come back for us. I'll keep you updated, if I can. Why I don't hike alone anymore. Let's get straight into that. It was a few years ago, back when this happened. I had been hiking along a trail in Ellinjay, GA. It was late afternoon and almost dark. I planned to get a few pictures for my Instagram, but nothing came out good. I decided that I didn't want to be out after dark, so I naturally started to head back. I had been walking for a good mile, and by now it was dark. I used a small camping lantern because I didn't have any flashlights at my cabin. I checked my watch. It was 11:34 p.m. I was uneasy, because the forest is a scarier place at night. The only sound was the shrill chirping of katydids. That was until I heard 5 loud stomps. When I say loud, I mean loud. Like startle you enough to jump loud. I looked around, but I couldn't see much because of my stupid lantern. I yelled out, "Alright, who the fuck are you?" But it didn't sound too intimidating as my voice cracked in the middle of it. All I got in response was a loud grunt. It was deep and unhuman. I stepped back from where it came from as I saw 2 eyes staring at me from the brush. I started to run along the trail, hearing a manic stomping of whatever it was alongside me in the forest. The next thing I know, I was smacked in the head by a rock. When I woke up, it was dawn. I was being dragged, and I was relieved because I thought it was a search and rescue team. I looked up and screamed. What was dragging me wasn't a rescue officer. It was a huge ape-like creature. God, it was fucking Sasquatch. It turned to look at me and I saw the most horrible face. It had a heavy brow and short stubby nose, and a mouth with large fangs poking out. It had light brown shaggy hair covering its entire body. It snorted at me. I felt a gob of snot land on my cheek, and it began to walk again. I smacked at its large arm, and regretted it almost instantly. It reached back and smacked me in the chest. I was winded and gasping for breath. I was sure it had broken my ribs and felt a sense of dread. I was done for now. This was how I'd die. It let out a sort of hoot, which I suspected was a laugh. Suddenly, I heard a loud bang, and it was a gunshot, not at a Sasquatch, but that was enough to make it howl, drop me and run. I stood up and fell over again. I ended up dragging myself home over the course of 2 hours, and I called 911. When I woke up, I was in hospital. There was a doctor and a police officer in the room with me. The officer asked what happened to me. I told him all about Sasquatch. He didn't believe me, obviously, and asked again, and I told him again. He sighed and left the room. It was officially marked up as a hiking accident where I slipped and fallen down a steep cliff. I had read that in a newspaper a few months after the whole fiasco. I got up from the table and looked through the window overlooking my backyard. I screamed when I saw the same ape-like face scowling at me through the window, holding up the mangled corpse of my dog. Michigan camping trip. I'm not sure where to share this story, but here seems to be the better place than any. Let's get the details down. I will refer to my friend as C. Me and him were planning a camping trip where he offered we would go to a plot of land that his uncle owned. It was far away in the woods and with no other campers. Given the fact that we were drinking underage, it would decrease our chances of getting caught drastically. So, I of course thought it was a great idea. So we packed up everything we would need and headed out. It took us 4.5 hours to get there. Now, the only way in and out of the woods was a 5-mile dirt road. But it was nothing that my Jeep Ranger couldn't handle. We decided to set up a clearing. It was already 7:40 p.m. and the sun was going down. So we set up the tent and started a fire. We sat around the fire drinking and all having a good time. We caught up because it had been a long time since we had seen each other. After my 5th beer, I looked at my watch and saw it was 1:49 a.m, so I decided to hit the sack. He did too, and we were asleep within minutes. I awoke and looked at my watch. It read 4:27 a.m. I looked around, wondering what woke me up. It didn't take long to find out what had. Something was rubbing the top of the tent. Thinking it was a tree branch, I closed my eyes and tried to go back to sleep. My eyes then shot open in terror as I realised we'd set up the tent in the middle of a clearing. Now, let me explain something. This was a normal tent. It was the shape of a teepee, and the metal parts that kept up the tent, or the inside. I'd say the tent was about 5'5" in height, and whatever was rubbing against it was very close to the top. My eyes grew wider as I saw the impression of a human hand, or human-like hand. After a while it stopped. The strange thing was, I never heard them walk away. But they must have, because I went out to check and nothing was there. The next morning I asked C if he had heard anything strange last night. He told me no, so I brushed it off as my drunken mind playing tricks on me. That day was uneventful. We simply hiked around, chatting and smoking the vape we bought. That night was identical to the first. Started a fire, sat down and started drinking. This time, however, we noticed the woods had gone completely silent. Now me and C know what this means. We both stopped talking and started listening. It wasn't long before we heard twigs snapping and branches breaking. We looked in the direction of the noise, but there was nothing there. And then the unthinkable happened. This creature came a few feet from the tree line and bared its yellow-stained teeth at us. This thing, it had the head of a wolf, the torso, arms and hands of a man, but from the waist down, and its legs more like that of a dog. At first it appeared on all fours, but slowly grows up on its hind legs. Now, I know it wasn't hunting us. It appeared to think of us as a threat on its territory. Realising this, I slowly stood up, turned to C and told him, "Get up," and slowly walked backwards towards the car. He did so, and we both started slowly walking back to the car. For every 3 steps we took back, it would take 1. It went on like this the entire walk back to the car. When we finally got in, I slammed the key into the ignition and gunned it down the dirt road. Now, I know this is the part where I'm supposed to say it chased us all a long way down the dirt road. But it didn't. It just watched us leave from the clearing. People say seeing these types of things changes your life forever. But to be honest, my life went on as if nothing happened. And I still go camping to this day. The way that I see it, just because a bear can kill me, doesn't mean I won't go in the woods because of it. And I feel the same rules applies to whatever I saw. Well, that's my story. Sorry if some parts of it are a little messed up. English wasn't my best class. I hope posting it here will take something off my chest. But, for some messed up reason, I kind of want to see it again. The hike. Let's get straight into that. I am alone on the top of this mountain. I can see where my car is parked, but it's down a nearly vertical cliff, and I surely can't go back the way that I came. I wasn't alone when I began my climb, but I am now. I figure if I'm going to be stuck up here, I might as well tell you all why. At 1700 I picked up my girlfriend, Sammy. Sammy had wanted to go hiking since I first met her, and now it was our time to go. I had just started going to college and out in the mountains. Our plan was to hike up to a mountain, make a camp near the top, and enjoy our time together away from the world. We stopped by my house and picked up all of our gear. We brought food, water, a radio, blankets, a tent, and a small propane grill. We began our hike at 19:30. The mountains were steep, but nothing too difficult to climb. There was wildlife everywhere, deer, birds and rabbits for the most part. About halfway up the mountain, we came across an old camp. The place looked like it had been ransacked. All the tents were torn and faded. There was a pit which obviously had a fire in it. I decided to check out one of the tents. As I peeked inside, I wasn't sure what I was looking at. The inside of the tent was littered with bones. Just as I turned to call to Sammy, I heard her scream. I got out the tent to see what was going on. Just inside the thick forest, I saw it, a deep orange-red pair of eyes burning in their sockets. I heard a low whispering.
"To the end of the earth, from the depth of the valley, to give a wide berth until it ends in folly, the falling of the rain. So conjure vicious and shrill, to wash away all pain so the forest can remain.
We started running, but more eyes blocked the path. Sammy was paralysed in fear. One of these things was right in front of her. It looked vaguely human, with dark fur and large black teeth. I tried to grab her, but it beat me. It took her down in one swipe and drug her away. I'm not proud of this part, but I ran. I turned and ran into one part of the forest where there weren't any eyes, as I ran up the mountain.
With fall of night, the beasts come to life and to cause all fright, with eyes that burn bright, while the beasts hunt, their fire does blaze, to surround and survey, and, when it's right, to raise.
It wasn't hard to outrun these creatures, until I made it to the top of the mountain. Once I reached the peak, I knew that I was truly alone. All I have on me is my phone and my calls keep getting dropped. I hear them again.
Those who watch, so careful, carefree, once race begins, to the night did flee. The chase has begun, them versus the beasts. Not all of them ran, only the ones that can.
I look down at the rock I'm sitting on. There seems to be something carved. It goes up to the peak, went my lonely soul. No one else in sight but I. And that's it. I wonder if it has anything to do with those beasts. I can hear them again. It's a long way down, but I'm going to try and climb down. This has been my account. The other side of the tracks. Let's get straight into that. One day, me and my friend Emily went on a walk through the woods behind my house, which we did fairly often, even though we were young to be in the woods by ourselves. There are train tracks separating our part of the woods from the other side that's more like, well, a forest. We would occasionally go across the tracks and explore the other side, as we called it, although I did not realise then how eerie it was on the other side. Then, going back now, 10 years later, makes my hairs down my spine stand straight up. As we were exploring the other side, Emily turned to me with a frightened look on her face and said, "I think we're being followed." I told her she probably heard a bird or deer. Deep down I felt the same piercing stare of that creature's bloodthirsty eyes that she did. We continued on even though its presence could be felt from miles away. In the distance was a fallen tree we decided to stop and sit on for a break. As we got closer, I saw scratches in the bark of the downed tree. We ignored it and sat down and talked, until we heard a deafening noise. Out of fear we ran. When we came to a stop, I realised I didn't recognise anything around us. It was just dark and murky around, but that's impossible. It was noon when we left, and had I lost track of time? I didn't know what to do. I wanted to give up and cry, but we had to get out of there. We started walking the way that I hoped my house was, when I started hearing quick footsteps behind us. Realising we were being followed, I suggested we pick up the pace by a lot. Then I saw running behind me, all of my nightmares in one, what looked to be a tall shadow, with a defined human deer face covered by some sort of bone moss hat, but what seemed to catch my eyes was the long deadly claws and haunting eyes. As we ran, we came across an old shed and decided to seek protection in there. We tried to stay quiet, but the pounding on my heart seemed to echo throughout the forest. Once deciding that horrid creature was long gone, we took off in the same direction as before. While we were running, I heard a train close by. I had hope again, till I heard Emily scream behind me. I should have turned back right then, but instead, I ran faster. Once I got to the tracks, I turned to find Emily was no longer beside me. Knowing it was the right thing to do, I ran back into the forest after her. I followed some hoof tracks back to the shed, but this time it was locked. I ran around to the small cracked window and saw Emily passed out on a chair, with cuts up and down her legs. I found a stick and busted the window. I called her name and she looked at me with fear in her eyes. I helped her as best I could out of the window and back to the tracks, and we lay down on the tracks, and I promised not to go back, ever, to the other side. Wow. Hope you guys enjoyed that set compilation of stories there. Very excited to get those out tonight. Read them last night. Hope you did enjoy them. As I say, please do let me know down below in the comments. As ever, please do share and like. And remember, if you haven't subscribed to DMT, smash the subscribe button and kick the notification bell into the stratosphere to stay up to date with all DMT content. And remember guys, if you're going hiking or camping in a deep, dark forest, keep your wits about you, your eyes and ears open, and above all, remember, be safe, not sorry.